How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome to Geekritique. My name is Dakota, and I love timelines. I love watching stuff in order, I love reading stuff in order, and I love mapping stuff on a chronology. It's a hobby that I've been doing for some time now. I've been heavily invested in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline for over 6 years now. My first ever MCU timeline was back in 2015. Look at this infographic, way before Geekritique was even a YouTube channel. But now that it is, our MCU timeline videos account for over a fourth of our total channel views, so that's huge for us. But we want to expand past that point while also giving you news and updates on the MCU timeline, but also other timelines like the Star Wars timeline, MonsterVerse. Today we're even going to be talking about a potential Frozen timeline that we have in the works. So we have a lot of stuff that we're working on in terms of just mapping different chronologies so that we can understand each of the universes a little bit better. I think it's really interesting trying to figure out how Iron Man became Endgame and all the steps that had to diverge from that original timeline to get to that final product. I love that kind of stuff. So we're going to be talking about stuff like that in this timeline series, specifically the Geekritique Timeline Journal, which you are a viewer of our very first episode, so thank you. You'll notice a few things are a little bit different in this particular video. One, I'm holding a journal. I don't usually do that. Two, you'll find chapter markers to skip ahead towards any topic that you're interested in, whether it be MCU, Star Wars, or other. You can go ahead and skip that, but I would like it if you watch the entirety of the video. It would help us as a channel. And thirdly, we have a new like system. It's called our Geek level. Currently, we are level 74, and that's based on the amount of total likes across the entire channel. I have it set so that the 1 millionth like on this channel will be at level 200. So I hope this improves engagement a little bit. Hope you guys enjoy watching this eventually go up video after video. So let's jump into our timeline journal. And I'm a little nervous. This is a little bit more of a candid look at how I do my timelining. So we're going to be starting with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have some corrections that we need to make with our WandaVision video. We have some updates on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that. But first things first, our most recent timeline, the version 6.5, has surpassed 300,000 views. That is amazing. I think it passed on, April 22nd. And that's awesome because there's only ever been 4 videos on our channel to ever hit that mark. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the likes on that video. That's our second most liked video. Maybe this geek level will go up soon. WandaVision. I have some corrections to make. So in our WandaVision timeline video so far that we did a couple weeks back, I think it was after episode 5 that we released the video, we mentioned that we believe that Sword Headquarters takes place in Georgia, specifically because they actually show some scenes of the Georgia swamps and then inside an Atlanta building. But a lot of the MCU is filmed in Atlanta, so I can't actually do that, and it doesn't actually seem as though Monica Rambeau traveled from Georgia all the way to New Jersey. That would be an overnight trip. But there's no evidence that she did travel overnight. It looks like it's a single day until she gets to Westview, New Jersey. So I'm going to guess that WandaVision's Sword Headquarters actually takes place in the tri-state area. So that would decrease the actual day by 1. Instead of 25 days total, the show would be a 24-day total after Endgame, which we actually have new dates for. I found a date in WandaVision that is very, very telling, and it confirms a couple things. Most notably, when WandaVision actually occurs and when the snap occurs in Endgame. So in the episode 7 intro, there's a calendar that's briefly shown with a circle over a Friday the 10th. Now, if you look at calendars in 2023 and look at the time period that we're trying to determine, we know that Endgame occurred in mid-October sometime. So if it's 24 days later, it would have to be somewhere in late October, early November. Now, if you look at the November 2023 calendar, the 10th arrives on a Friday, which fits perfectly. So this very last day of the series, which in the real world timeline, not just the Westview timeline, occurs in November 10th, 2023. So if we take that back 24 days, that actually corresponds with something that the MCU Wiki guessed. So they guessed that October 17th was the day. I guess it was more of a guesstimate. Yeah, they did do their work. They tried to figure out the correct day of the actual snap that brought everyone back to life. They guessed it was October 17th, and this lands perfectly. So I don't know if the Marvel Studios team that was working on WandaVision was looking specifically what's 24 days after the MCU Wiki timeline date, or this was just a serious coincidence or what, but it's really cool that we finally know when the snap happened, October 17th, 2023, and the final episode of WandaVision, November 10th, 2023. So let's jump into Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We know that it occurs 6 months after the snap that brought everyone back. It's a world 6 months post that, and it's kind of in turmoil. We have the Flag Smashers. I'm going to do a deep dive in a future video, I think, but for the time being, we know that it has to take place in either April 2024 or May 2024. And by my guesstimate, it probably spans some 3 weeks, considering some of the time jumps. So yeah, I guess we'll talk more about that in a future video. We have some news on the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special front, thanks to James Gunn's Twitter. He posted an image of the holiday special script on Twitter, and in the comments, one of his fans asked him if this occurs after Thor 4 and before Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and he confirmed with a simple yes. So we know the placement generally of where the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special takes place, which is pretty cool to me. This is going to be a special on Disney+, not movie length. When it comes to Loki, we know it's going to have a lot to do with time. We know the primary organization in the video is the Time Variance Authority, the TVA. But in the most recent trailer, at least as of recording this video, there is a screenshot of the timeline with 13 branches. Sorry about that. There's actually 14 branches on the timeline in the Loki trailer, so not 13. So scratch whatever I was going to say there. So I'm excited to see what they do in trying to maybe potentially correct those branches. It looks a little similar to the Ancient One when she showed the Hulk, those branches on the timeline, so that's pretty cool. Now, I have had a lot of questions about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Runaways Season 3, and Helstrom. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7 you can place right after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6. They don't really talk about the snap at all, or the 5-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame. Runaway Season 3 you can put right after Season 2, it kind of picks right up. It does muddy the water of our Cloak and Dagger placement. We'll probably explore that in a future video. But Helstrom has been confirmed to not be canon thanks to the showrunner, as well as the fact that they removed all Marvel branding from any promotional material, basically killing it in the water. Now, I have a serious question for you because this is something that I've been debating for a while. What should I do with the future of the timeline? Specifically, should I keep the Marvel TV shows? This is something that I've been kind of dreading doing ever since I started the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, because they've always been canon to me, and they still are, but most viewers don't see them as canon. I'm wondering if I should do 2 videos. Maybe I should do a timeline video where I only talk about the movies and Marvel Studios projects, but kind of like leave the shows in the video, like in the background. I don't really know. What do you guys think? Should I keep these Marvel shows? Should I take them down from the future of the timeline? Let me know in the comments, please. So now we're going to be talking about our Star Wars timeline placements. We have some corrections to our The High Republic timeline. We're going to be putting stuff into the timeline, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars timeline stuff in general. So let's begin. Thanks to StarWars.com, we have an official The High Republic timeline, which explains where the basic placements are for all the original books. This adheres pretty similarly to the timeline that we created, but in my opinion, I think this is a little bit messy. I don't know. It seems to be like jumbled on top of each other. You're having a hard time seeing what's actually in the order that you're supposed to be seeing it. We have the High Republic comic series from Marvel that seems to be after the High Republic Adventures. And that's something that I want to talk about because I spoke to Daniel Jose Older, the writer for the High Republic Adventure series, and he explained that this does occur after the Starlight Beacon ceremony that we spoke about in our timeline video previously, but not directly after, not necessarily the day after. But we know that the High Republic comic series from Marvel does take place directly after the Starlight dedication ceremony. So this is just really confusing. I think they have it flipped in certain places. I appreciate that they do have an official timeline order. That shows me that they are trying to get their fans interested in this new era of Star Wars. It is a really amazing era of Star Wars. I wish more people would give it the light of day, but whatever. I want to talk a little bit about the background that we created for our Star Wars timelines going forward. It's a 20-minute scrolling screen of every single Star Wars comic and issue that has ever been produced up until February 2021. So there's at least one panel, one page, and one double spread throughout the entirety of this background that we made. I don't know, it took me forever, and I wish you guys could see it up close because I think it's really cool. There's some beautiful artwork that's been produced in the canon Star Wars comics within the past 6 or 7 years. So thanks to DJ Older, I've decided to move our High Republic Adventures 2 days forward on the timeline. So instead of the second month, 7th day, it starts the second month, 9th day of 232 BBY. Daniel Older also made some comments about Marchion Ro's appearance in the High Republic Adventures, which is something that I've questioned too. He has a blue mask in the comics at the end of... where is it? Light of the Jedi. He has a red mask. So basically he said that it's not indicative of the timeline. He changes helmets. He's got style. Speaking about the High Republic Adventures, we have issue 3 that came out this month, April 2021. This takes place 1 week after the Padawans Yoda and Zeen Mrala arrive at Starlight Beacon, and it kind of shows the progression of where she is as the universe is being opened up to her. We place this at 216-232. Also this month, the High Republic issue number 4 came out. It takes place directly after issue number 3 that very night. Maybe takes place over the course of an hour, and it shows how Jedi Master Avar Kriss and company are facing off against the new foe in the Drengir. There's also a flashback to 238 BBY, which is 6 years earlier. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Star Wars Insider issue 201. It has a short story, if I can find it, called First Duty Part 1 by Cavan Scott. And the artwork is great, as always. The actual timeline placement's a little bit confusing. The only reference over the course of the couple pages is some nurse that claims to have been there for 3 days. We know Starlight Beacon dedication was kind of like the start of it, but we also know people were working there before the dedication ceremony. So I'm just going to put it 3 days after the dedication ceremony. Actually, issue 202 has also come out with the second part of First Duty, so I'll have to figure out where that takes place as well. Now, excuse me. I've been trying to make a Mandalorian timeline video, and I actually got pretty far. I mapped the entirety of the first season, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but I figured out there's two lines in the first episode of Mandalorian that tell you exactly where it takes place. I think it does anyway. That's what I've based my Mandalorian timeline on. I'm going to be showing that in hopefully sometime soon, if the desire is there for it. I also recently listened to the Dr. Aphra audio drama, and I thought that was a lot of fun. It wasn't as good, in my opinion, as the Dooku Jedi Lost audio drama that was released a couple years back, but this was really fascinating. It was the events of the first run of 2015 Star Wars comics, as well as the Vader comics, but through the point of view of Dr. Aphra. And it's telling the story of how Vader is learning who the rebel was that blew up the Death Star, and he's going through his past trying to figure out how a person named Skywalker could even exist. So it's really interesting, and it's through her eyes, so she doesn't really understand it all that much, but it's really cool. So that takes place 0 ABY, I would guess 3 weeks after the Death Star blew up. I would probably say it spans about 2 months based on all the time jumps that happen and the amount of stuff that happens. I want to jump into a new topic, actually. We're going to be talking about the MonsterVerse. I have this graphic novel that was released in conjunction with Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And I have a lot of fun reading stuff like this. I love tie-in material. It really does flesh out the world for me, and it helps understand, again, the timeline. So this takes place directly after Godzilla 2014 in later 2014, obviously. And it also has flashbacks to about 3,000 years ago, the 11th century BCE, where the first iteration, supposedly, of the Godzilla kaiju existed. They called him Dagon, and he was worshipped as a god. It's really fascinating, and it ties into the mythology that we see develop in Godzilla King of the Monsters. So I want to do a MonsterVerse timeline at some point in the future. Let me know if that's something that you're interested in watching. Last but not least, I'm working on a Frozen timeline. Yes, a Disney's Frozen timeline. It's not something that I would ever expect myself to make, but recently we started watching them and I realized there is some serious lore development since Frozen 2. And I wanted to go into it, so I've read all the books, read all the comics, and I'm going to be doing a Frozen timeline with more detail in a future video, so I hope you stick around for that. If you want to hear Jen explain how deep I go into my rabbit holes, this is a recent clip from our recent podcast, Project Geekology. So, watched those two movies, ended up going down this huge Frozen rabbit hole.
When Dakota goes down a rabbit hole, it's like something that Alice wouldn't even dream of doing. Like, it's beyond your wildest imaginations. Like, so we watched this past week, we watched both movies. Well, we never finished the second one the second time, but Frozen 1 we watched twice. Frozen 2 we've watched 1.5 times. He's read 2 books. He's watched all of the, like, special edition things that they have on Disney+.
The animated shorts.
You watched, like, a documentary? You watched a documentary on it?
I started it, yeah.
Yeah, look at it. Look at this guy go.
Yeah, so I'm potentially making a Frozen timeline video. If you're interested in checking Project Geekology out, we'll leave a link in the description down below. It's a fun podcast me and my friend do that we span different topics that we wouldn't normally cover here on Geekritique. So please do give that a check out. We would love your support. I have more notes here on a Frozen timeline, but again, I have a video script pretty much written out, so you'll be getting a Frozen timeline pretty soon, hopefully. But thank you so much for watching the first iteration of the Timeline Journal. Patrons over on Patreon, you guys got this 2 days early. If you want to help support our channel, please be sure to check out our Patreon. You get these Timeline Journals 2 days early over there. Thanks again. I hope you do help us get our geek level up by liking this video and all videos on our channel, hopefully. I'm not asking you to go to every video. That's kind of weird. But thanks, guys. We have more videos coming up. Have a good one.